Many voters in Wisconsin had to leave their homes in order to vote. Governor Tony Evers tried to delay the election, but the state Supreme Court blocked that order. The decision to have the election raises questions whether yesterday's primary put the health of our state at more risk. News 8 Now's Jordan Fremstad explains the politics behind it.
This was not Wisconsin's finest moment.
Scientists and doctors have suggested staying home to stop the spread of COVID-19. Governor Tony Evers ordered to delay Wisconsin's primary election, but the state Supreme Court ruled 4-2 to stop the decision.
This was an epic and comprehensive failure by multiple players within the government.
Hours later, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled not to extend the deadline for absentee ballots. All votes were made along party lines.
That just shows you how politicized, how partisan, and how ideological the judiciary is.
Representative la-crosse says this problem should have been handled a lot sooner.
The whole process is frustrating. If we were not going to have the election on April 7th, something should have been done 2-3 weeks ago and not the last minute.
Professor of political science at UW La Crosse, Anthony Chergosky, says every branch of government failed on this issue.
The partisanship in this country and the partisanship in Wisconsin particularly is just absolutely toxic.
The integrity of the judicial system is also in question.
So there's this idea that when judges put on their robe and make decisions, they can put aside all of their biases and make totally neutral decisions. And that is just not supported by the research on judicial decision making.
There were also people who wanted to vote but couldn't.
There's no question that thousands of people were denied their right to vote by the procedures of Tuesday's election.
Just 5 of Milwaukee's 180 voting locations were open.
Studies show voter turnout impacts an election. A study by UW-Madison, highlighted by the New York Times, looked at how voter ID laws impacted the 2016 presidential election. The study found close to 17,000 registered Wisconsin voters were not allowed to vote. That number could be even higher. 77% of those prevented from voting cast ballots in the 2012 election. The burden of voter ID fell disproportionately on low-income and minority populations. Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton that year by close to 23,000 votes in Wisconsin. The Times pointed out the November turnout in Wisconsin was the lowest in a presidential election since the year 2000.
Did voters face a choice between civic duty and their health?
Oldenberg says precautions were in place for those who voted in person Tuesday.
We all wore masks, we all gloves, we all sanitized. People only used one pen, their pen, they took it home to sign in on the book. Never touched the screen. We did everything.
But Chergosky says there was another option.
A risk that doesn't have to happen if you had devised another approach for holding the election.
No matter which side of the aisle you are on, most people can agree Wisconsin can do better than April 7th, 2020.
We have to come together as a unit down there in Madison and talk and come up with a plan that we all can agree with.
The only people who come out of this looking good are the local election officials who did their best under impossible circumstances.
Wisconsin was the only state with an election scheduled in April that proceeded as planned. The results from the election will be released after 4 p.m. on April 13th.